I tend to be more of a progress-oriented person instead of a goal-oriented person. I'd rather prefer to look at it as, okay, where have I been in the past? Where am I right now? I feel like if you try to look at it through that kind of progress-oriented lens, you are less likely to feel like you failed. For me, that is kind of one of the skills that I have learned that high school never taught me. I grew up being a really sick kid. I didn't have a lot of friends because I was either at the hospital or before I was on meds, I was covered in hives and it kind of scared the other kids, so they didn't want to be my friend. But animals never really cared about that. They want you to give them scratches and give them food and leave them alone. Whenever I was sick and I couldn't really think straight enough to do my homework, I would just lay down on a couch and it would be watch a documentary, educate yourself, and my favorite things to educate about were animals and different ecosystems and the ways that different animals kind of perceive the world. With sign language, you're sort of hearing with your eyes, and for other animals that can hear things that humans can't, or they can see things that humans can't, I would frequently take cues from other animals around me rather than the people, because people ignore a lot of stimuli and the animals don't. I just preferred working more straightforward with that. I ended up wanting to go to Snow College. The problem is it's down in Ephraim, and when I told my mom and my doctors, they all looked at me and said, no, absolutely not. It is too far away. If there is some kind of medical emergency, we would have to get a chopper and life lift you to Salt Lake because they're one of the only hospitals capable of handling your health problems. Let's take you to UVU instead. That sounds better. It's close to home, it's within our budget, we can manage that. When I started at UVU, I didn't want to be here. For me, a lot of the other students in my high school, the students that I'd gone to elementary school, to middle school with, that had been bullying me since I was a kid, they were either going to UVU or BYU. I didn't want to stay with that group. So I was really not happy about that. And then I got to UVU, and I was alone for 2 years. And my original major wasn't zoology. It was actually ASL and deaf education. Growing up hearing and going to mainstream schools and not having access to sign language, I wanted to give that kind of opportunity to other kids. I had an FM system for my hearing aids that I could give the teachers, but I was missing a lot of information during class, and you could see it in my grades after I had gotten my first interpreter. I was always like a B average student. I got my first interpreter senior year of high school. It was straight A's. I wanted to give that kind of opportunity to other kids, especially the ones in mainstream high schools. And I had to take a biology class because you need to have some kind of science class if you're not a STEM major. I started learning in biology class, and I'm familiar with a lot of the information because I grew up in medicine. And I'm thinking, actually, maybe I should do this. So I changed my major. It felt even better, and I started making friends because the biology 1625 lab has different animals in it. And I looked at the animals and I asked the instructor, is it only like people that work on campus that take care of the animals? Can students help? Are there like volunteer positions? And she said, we can have volunteers sometimes. It depends on the semester. And that's how I started working in the zoology lab on campus, and I've worked there for 2 years, and that's my home now. There are definitely certain animals that I don't like working with a lot, and I've improved with that. Growing up, I had a horrible fear of crocodiles and snakes. I couldn't even look at a snake before I started working in the lab. One of the assistant managers, his name is Jared, he asked me, how do I feel about rats? Bring on the rats, that's fine. And he said, okay, let's go feed the red tails. I thought red tail was a type of rat. I was wrong, it's a 6-foot snake. And I helped him feed 2 of our red tails. And afterwards I had to sit down and consider, can I manage this? Can I do this? I'm gonna stick it out, I can do it, I can handle it, it's fine. Definitely having a social support system helps a lot with kind of overcoming fears, whether they're related to college or they're related to snakes or different animals. When I started having a friend group in the lab, whenever I was really struggling with classes or with even personal things, if I was scared of something, if I was nervous about something, if I was really, really happy about something, I had a group that was scared or happy or anything like that for me. Other resources on campus that have been really, really helpful, obviously having sign interpreters. I don't think I could function without interpreters for a lot of my classes. In general, the biology department is amazing when it comes to supporting the students. One of the professors here on campus is Melissa Cavan. Sometimes we call her Sissy. She is the manager for all of the labs in the biology department, not including the human anatomy and physiology labs. Sissy does anything with any of the biology, the botany, all of that is kind of her domain. And she's been the professor that's helped me with navigating a lot of stuff on campus. And she's also just a really good friend in general because she's not just my boss in the lab, but she's my family. In general, just a lot happier here than I thought I would ever be, and I think it's because of that support group that I have that I never imagined I was capable of having. In order to get that support group that I have now, the first step, looking back, was reaching out and asking Sissy, what was the deal with the animals on campus, who takes care of them? And the next step was, should I try to socialize with the other people taking care of these animals as friends, or should I just kind of go more coworker route? I needed to communicate, but how much did I want to communicate? And I decided I was going to try to be a little bit deeper in that communication and connection than I had previously attempted in other situations where I wanted to make a friend. That ability to try and make a deeper connection definitely requires a lot more vulnerability, and that is not a skill I'm very good at. In the past, whenever I had tried to make a friend, to be vulnerable with something, it usually led to me getting dropped and people running away. And when I came to UVU, there were sometimes parts of campus that felt like that, but the lab was never one of those places. And it felt like that meant I could start trying to be a little more vulnerable. And then I learned it was true, and I tried a little bit more, and now I've got a bunch of people on speed dial. UVU is a place for safe vulnerability.